Welcome to our Devos. We are talking this week about Mary's song, this little interlude of scripture that happens right after Gabriel pronounces that Mary is going to be the one that carries the Christ child. Mary has an opportunity to offer praise and worship to God, and she does so through a song, through this little musical, melodious psalm that is embedded right here in the Gospel of Luke. Now, interestingly, if you look at Mary's life and you study it from a perspective of an outsider, not a religious person, not a person that knows the Bible, not a person that knows the end from the beginning of that, no. If you look at it objectively, her life was filled with trials. Here she is. She's young in a small town, about 100 to 150 people, and they all figure out that she's pregnant. Well, that doesn't have the connotations back then as it does today. Today, people get pregnant out of wedlock, we celebrate them. Even people in our church, when this happens to them, we're just glad you're keeping the baby, you're bringing life into the world. God chose it. It wasn't ideal. Now we figure out what to do from there on. Of course, we advocate that you should not try to do this outside of wedlock, but the connotation is still that that's a life that God is bringing into this world. Well, back then, the stigma was so high, especially because Mary was considered a pious Jewish young lady. She was very, very religious and upright. And her fiance were trying to do the right things. And so to be found out that she was pregnant destroyed her reputation for the rest of her life. I mean, if you remember, one of the accusations that was made to Jesus was about his mother's immorality when he's an adult. So this stuck with her. Also, she had to have a really bad conversation with her fiance, Joseph. Hey, I just want you to know I'm pregnant. It's not yours, but I didn't sleep with anybody. How's that conversation going to go? All right, I mean, just picture it. Then she had to have this trek where she goes through miles and miles through the desert on a camel while she is trying to give birth. Again, not ideal. She didn't have any of the modern conveniences of medicine. So her life was filled with hardship. But there's something more. Mary did something in this song that I'm certain that she did for the rest of her life that kept her grounded. And it's something that we can do as well. That is, she focuses on God's works. She focuses on God's works. There is no shortage of evidence of the existence of God by looking around you, looking at an inventory of your life, looking at where you've been, looking at where the people that you love have been, and seeing what God has done in the lives of those around you. And a lot of times, one of the ways that people can overcome discouragement and depression is not by trying to fix the problem and fix a problem that's unfixable, but instead look around to see what it is that God is doing. I talked about this a couple weeks ago in our devotions when I talked about the habit of gratitude. And that happens by looking through the lens of trying to see all the work that God is doing around us. Mary did this. And she sings here in this song, Luke chapter 1, verse 52 through 54. She says, "He has brought down the mighty from their thrones and exalted those of humble estate." She's talking about God being in control of all powers, how mighty he is. She says, "He has filled the hungry with good things," talking about his grace and his providence. "And the rich he has sent away empty," talking about his justice system, not the world's. It says, "He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy." She talked about how she recognizes that God has provided for the nation of Israel. Again, out of mercy, we talked about that yesterday. And how this mercy shows who he is. So her eyes were always fixed on the working hand of God. We see this is a habit. This is a pattern. I am certain this isn't the first time that she prayed like this. And I guarantee you it certainly wasn't the last. But we can learn from that because so much of our time is spent on us looking at our lives at what is missing, what is wrong. My spouse and I aren't getting along. My finances aren't what they ought to be. I'm afraid for my future. The economy is doing this, and on and on and on it goes, instead of recognizing that you are connected to the living God who is over it all. And above it all, regardless of what's going on in your life, we can always focus on his works. Because if we do, that song will rise up out of our hearts so that no matter what circumstances we find ourselves in, God can be magnified.